Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of this podcast. A while back, I recorded two videos of Cloud PKI, which I explained Cloud PKI from a high level and a low level technical perspective. However, after I finished those two videos, I was like, what is next for Cloud PKI? How can we extend Cloud PKI to enhance security, compliance policy, probably? That question stuck with me for a while until someone from the IT community created 4 blogs of Cloud PKI with CBA, or what's known as Certificate-Based Authentication. And I was like, that is a brilliant idea to, implement within Intune. And today we will discuss about it and see what it's all about. So, the scenario: a company operates with a unique setup where they maintain two separate tenants for business purposes. The primary tenant holds all the company data and services, while the second tenant manages all the endpoint devices. This separation, while strategic, presents a significant challenge, ensuring that users access company services and data exclusively from company-owned devices that comply with corporate policies. The primary issue is enforcing access restriction such that users can only access the company data from compliant company managed devices. The solution: certificate-based authentication, or what's known as CBA. I personally think CBA is a promising approach. Implementing this method enforces users to only sign in using their company issued devices. This ensures that employees cannot bypass security measures by using personal devices or access company data. So without further ado, please welcome with me Maxime. So hello, Maxime.
Hello, Shady. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on this podcast. I am pretty excited for what we will discuss today.
Thank you for having me on. I was inspired with the Cloud PKI. I was like, okay, that's a cool product that Microsoft came out to. What can we do with it? Because okay, you can set up Cloud PKI. It takes half an hour, and you're done.
Yeah.
Compared when you had to set up like your own on-prem PKI with endless setup, you would have what, 2 days and then another day troubleshooting where you did something wrong.
Yeah.
So okay, Cloud PKI is the way to go. And then I thought, okay, I had a customer who had they have 2 tenants. For business reasons, they have 2 tenants. One tenant management, one tenant is a management of the IT devices, and the other tenant is where all the data is into. And the problem is, I've looked at a lot of things. How can we solve this? But the problem is, okay, we have those 2 tenants. How can we limit access to the tenant where all the data is into from only company devices? Because otherwise, it's really easy. We create a certain a conditional access policy where we say, okay, your device has to be enrolled, it has to be compliant. Bam, you limited the access from only company devices, or bring your own devices that are enrolled to your environment, and you're ready. All good. And then you can choose, okay, they have to do another authentication step or not. But the 2 tenants, you can't do that. And then came Cloud PKI. I was playing in my head, okay, certificate-based authentication. Can we make it so your device that is in your management tenant can we make it so if there is a certificate on the device that it can authenticate in tenant B where all your data is in? So started some Google searches and some surfing on the web, and then I was like, okay. Then I saw, okay, you have the what do you need to do it? First of all, what you need is one a PKI setup, Cloud PKI, in my case because that's easy, or you can just still do the old school way, set up your PKI on-prem, set up a full NDES, deploy those certificates to your devices. But one thing is needed, because if you just deploy the certificates without adding any extra info to the certificates, your user on your data tenant won't be able to recognize that certificate.
Okay. Before we continue, do you think it's, if you implement, do you think from a technical perspective, for me, if I go on-prem PKI, it's a lot harder. It's a lot of preparation in advance. It's to me, it's just wow. It's a lot of investment in, and a lot of time investment for on-prem cloud PKI. Whereas if we go to the cloud PKI, it's just a few clicks within a few minutes, and you just go through the wizard. Do you still recommend that going to the cloud PKI, or you say, okay, both are the same from the end result? What do you think?
Depends on your use case. There are some cases you can't use the cloud PKI yet. For example, if you have to deploy to on-prem servers, then you still need your on-prem PKI setup. But from management perspective and time perspective, if you don't need to deploy certificates locally to devices that are not cloud managed, I wouldn't think twice about it. I know it's pricey. It's pricey. It's I don't know the price perfectly, but it's like €1.80 or something, that ballpark if you take it separately. But it's also, compared to other products, it's hosted on dedicated hardware specific for PKI setups, for certificate setups. So I think it's worth the price, and it's the ease of use is really there, and you don't need to be a PKI expert to set it up.
Yes, exactly.
Because
I mean, spot on, man.
Yeah, because if you look at I don't know if it's still there, but I know a few years ago when I set up my first on-prem PKI, there is like in the Microsoft Learn part that you need to let your PKI setup be validated by Microsoft before you can go to production. Okay, I don't know whoever done that. Maybe the real big organizations do that, but there's also no information who do you need to contact to do the audit of the PKI setup. But it's just easy. It's go buy some licenses, activate it, and you can get started. Just a few clicks, like you said, and you're ready to roll.
Okay.
And not a hassle. I mean, I've set up, I think, 1 or 2 PKI setups completely, and I still don't sleep that well of it. So yeah, I think. And,
all right.
And then they call, the customer calls you, and we have an issue, and I'm like, yeah.
All right, Maxime. So how do we start with the CPA? What can you show us for today?
So how do we start with it? So like we said, prerequisites is cloud PKI. Let's just focus on the cloud PKI. Set it up, your root CA, and then your
With the intermediate CA, then the sub CA, yes.
Yeah, the sub CA. I was looking for the word, but I forgot. So what do we need? Let's just start again. So the prerequisites to get started with certificate-based authentication is you have your Intune configured, your devices are enrolled to Intune. Once these are enrolled, then you set up your Cloud PKI. You start with your root CA, then your sub CA, then you deploy the root certificate to your machine, then you deploy the SCAP certificate to your machine, and that's what. If you do that, then you're all ready to go for a basic rollout, not multi-tenant, but just if you have one tenant, then you just do that. And then the only thing you have to do is enable certificate-based authentication for your users. Create an authentication strength. There you still can choose we only allow certificate-based authentication, or we allow certificate-based authentication and the phone authentication where you just get the pop notification, or with a FIDO key or something to log in. Once you've done that, you create a conditional access policy that suits your needs to allow to authenticate to it. The only thing there you have to think about is if you go the route only certificate-based authentication, don't forget your Intune enrollments because they don't have the certificate yet. So there we need to create some extra conditional access policies when you authenticate for Intune enrollment, you can do another authentication as the FIDO key, phone. Doesn't really matter, whatever suits your use case and what your requirements are. So that's basic certificate-based authentication setup. But like we already discussed, here we are talking multi-tenant certificate-based authentication. It's actually not that much different. So we have the same prereqs. The only thing in Intune, what we will have to do is add an extra attribute to the certificate. So we can link that extra attribute to the tenant where all your data is hosted. That's some extra authorization info to that user. So it knows, okay, the usernames are the same. The UPNs are different, but the usernames are the same. So what we'll do is we'll add the username info to that certificate, and we'll add that username authorization info to the user in tenant B. So it knows, okay, I'm trying to log into the tenant B with my certificate I got from tenant A.
Do you have a diagram for that? I thought you.
Yeah.
Do you have a diagram? Maybe you can share it with us so we would follow you.
Let's go for it. Sure.
All right. Okay, so this is the tenant A, tenant B.
Yeah. So we'll cover it quickly. Yeah, it's this is like what is needed in Azure to get there. But so you have your two tenants, tenant A, tenant B. Your tenant A is where all your devices are hosted. Tenant B is where all your data is hosted. Is it SharePoint or your mail, whatever. It's in tenant B. Tenant A is only used to manage the devices. So what we'll need there is, first of all, an Azure subscription. That Azure subscription, we will create an automation account, a managed identity. Managed identity is to be able to read out the information of the users in tenant A. account is to put the script on a runbook, an Azure runbook. And we won't really go into detail of the script because it's also, if you read my blog, it's a concept script. It works, but I would highly suggest if you use it that it's not production ready. So
I will definitely post all the 4-part blogs under this video.
Yeah. So just to let you know, it's a concept script. It works, but it's not production ready, but it can help you get started. So what that script actually will do is we have two users in tenant A. We have a user in tenant A, we have a user in tenant B. Okay, we need to match those together. We need to know, okay, those are the same user. In my case, I just checked if the username is the same. I know that's like, there are so many cases where that can have an issue with only username check. That's why I would say do extra checks. Maybe add some extra user attributes to the users to do the check on. But for now, we'll just say, okay, the script matches the users. What will it do? It will add that username without the UPN as authorization info on the user in tenant B. That's why you need also an app registration in tenant B is to read out the users and to be able to write to the users. So also be careful with that app registration because it can manipulate users. So don't put your the key somewhere plain text. Put it in a key vault or something. That's also not covered in this, but put it somewhere safe.
Okay.
So once those are matched, you're all actually ready to go. If you have done your Intune part, you added that extra attribute into your certificate. You created your conditional access policies. You created the authentication strength policies. You enabled certificate-based authentications for the user in tenant B. Then you can get started. Then once you go to the login, then you should just say, okay, if you allow multiple options, then you choose certificate-based authentication, click certificate-based authentication, you will get a pop-up. If it's in Chrome or whatever, you will get a pop-up to select the certificate. Depending on how you set up your certificate-based authentication, there is an option to only show the certificates that can be used for that type of authentication to make the list shorter. So select the certificate you need to use. In my case, we only deployed one user certificate, so there is only one option. Click it, and it will log in with that certificate just by adding that authorization info to that user. In my blog, we'll also cover with this way we are using like a low binding affinity. So it's you can say it's security risk that you are only using low affinity because it's just checking on username to check if the certificate is valid. So if you have a malicious admin or something who wants to log in to some account, he could add extra info to a user and log in, but then you can say, okay, but you can also create a temporary access token or something. So that's why you need to be really mindful about that app registration, because if you add with the low affinity binding, if you add a username to another user, then he can log in with his certificate to the other user. So that's something you need to be mindful of.
All right. So, okay, how do we go from here? I mean, can you show us like a small demo what to touch on?
Yeah, sure.
Due to some technical issues, we had to record this demo separately, where Maxime is demonstrating the login experience for M365 via the Cloud PKI certificate. If you keep on watching this demo, you will find out where exactly is this certificate installed within the Windows environment. I'll be sure to link up all the blogs on how to implement this technology within your environment. And please enjoy the demo, have fun, and I'll catch you on the next one.